Hi, Krista. So there's good news. Senate Bill 1062 was vetoed by the governor of Arizona. That's the controversial religious freedom, the heterosexist bill. I wanted to talk a little bit about what inspires this sort of legislation and then a little bit about analogies and how we use them. Last year, a lesbian couple was refused service for their wedding cake at a Gresham bakery. Gresham is just outside of Portland. It's still in Multnomah County, so we're near neighbors. And Oregon has a non-discrimination law, which means that the court eventually found that the company in question was discriminating against the couple based on their sexual orientation, and that's illegal in Oregon, or at least people have legal recourse if they are discriminated against based on their sexual orientation in Oregon. Naturally, many conservatives felt that this was a bit of a worry. Because people trying to uphold traditional marriage values were no longer able to do so because of Oregon's sweeping anti-discrimination laws. So most Americans no longer approve of discrimination based on sexual orientation. Moreover, approval rates for same-sex marriage are at all-time highs. Conservatives are on the losing end of this battle, but at the same time, most people approve of religious freedom, a right to discriminate based on religious beliefs. And as insidious and fucking wicked as that shit is, it is, in a way, the death throes of this anti-marriage equality movement. And that's good. While I don't think the LGBT movement should be centering marriage as much as it does, maybe at all, I think that this is beneficial. But the fact that this is a policy introduced by people against whom the tide of the moral zeitgeist has turned is one of the many ways analogies to Jim Crow are incorrect. Before I come to point number 2, let me just enter a postulate into the record. In order for people to overcome their oppression, in order for liberation to happen, people must first understand themselves as part of a greater historical narrative, as historical entities participating in that historical narrative. So they have to understand the past in terms of the present and in terms of the future. Understand the present in terms of their history and in terms of what is directly to come. Understand that change is necessary and inevitable. So, if we're going to make analogies about a queer struggle, it is useful, particularly liberatory, if those same analogies come from queer history. Now, I know I said marriage should not be the center of the LGBT movement, but that doesn't mean I think it's a trivial issue. I just think that analogies between anything about same-sex marriage and Jim Crow trivializes Jim Crow and erases the struggles of queer people, the lives of queer people, the stories of queer people of color living through Jim Crow. That is important and should be critical to our understanding of our history. And 2, there are valid and important analogies we should be drawing to queer histories. That is, analogies of past queer struggles to the current queer struggle, and current queer struggles that are valid analogies to Jim Crow. There are real things done by real institutions right now that are absolutely valid analogies to Jim Crow that are tearing queer lives apart, and we should be focusing on this as an LGBT movement. But Sam, what analogies are you drawing to Jim Crow? How about the prison industrial complex? People of color are disproportionately locked up in this country. This affects queer people of color. This affects everybody because it's a fucked up system. But the point is that this sort of struggle should be central to our understanding of the queer past and queer present. Moreover, too many LGBT families are torn apart by an evil immigration policy. Marriage is not a solution to this problem. The problem is that we have an evil immigration policy that tears families apart. It tears lots of families apart, but it also tears LGBT families apart. And this sort of thing should be central to our understanding of the LGBT movement and LGBT history. Too many queer people can't get jobs. Too many LGBT people are houseless. All of these things are experienced by the most marginalized people. People most marginalized by society, people most marginalized in the LGBT community. And until we start centering the most marginal experiences, we will never approach liberation. I submit that it is only by centering the people who are most marginalized that we understand the connection between past queer struggles, between Jim Crow, between all oppression, and our everyday lives. Krista, I will see you tomorrow.